Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fucking great, huh? Yeah,
Like
yeah,
wild,
yeah,
bro.
yeah. And I think without hitting that low that I hit and having to fucking scratch and claw my way back out and all the way up, yeah, I don't think I would be in the position I'm in. I think that dark period and being so low and having to dig my ass out of that hole was crucial in my trajectory of where I'm at now. But yeah, I
Yeah.
wrestled fucking Sting, dude. Fucking
Yeah, this guy
I
wrestled fucking
yeah,
Sting.
caught his ass off a balcony, man. That guy jumped off a balcony. I caught his ass.
Welcome to the Men's Health Unscripted podcast with Patrick and Cam.
Where we focus on your entire health, mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional to make sure you are good to go every day.
Welcome to the Men's Health Unscripted podcast with Patrick and Cam. And we've got a big guest for you today.
He's
AEW's
huge.
Big Bill, former tag team champion in AEW, probably wrestling champion around the world. But Bill, we're so happy to have you on. You've had quite the career, quite the journey. We'll just start it off. How you doing, man? Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm doing very well. It's a beautiful day here in Tampa. I just got back from the gym and I'm a little bit tired from that, but mentally, I feel accomplished, so I'm doing well.
Awesome. Well, we're definitely happy to have you on. Let's just kind of start it off. How did you get into wrestling? And then we'll just kind of move on with
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, so when I was a kid, huge wrestling fan. Once my memories begin, wrestling was always involved. Going to shows with my dad at Madison Square Garden and going to shows at the Nassau Coliseum and watching superstars on Saturdays. And then Tuesday mornings, I'd be able to watch Monday Night Raw because we would have to tape it because me and my sister were too young when Raw first started in '93. So I was a wrestling fan my whole life for as long as I can remember. And then when I got to high school, a lot of times to be cool in high school, wrestling at that point in time, 2003 was not cool anymore. So people stopped watching wrestling, but I continued, and there was only a few of us in my school. And I stayed passionate about wrestling throughout high school. I went to WrestleMania at 20 at the Garden, which was really, really cool. And then that just stuck with me all the way through college. So, when I was in college, I went to NYU and I was pre-med and I was studying for the MCAT and I was, reading through all those Kaplan books and I was like, I can't do this for a career and I can't do this for another 4 years in med school. This is not interesting enough. Like it just isn't my passion. So I decided that once I graduate, I'm going to start wrestling. So when I graduated college, I started at Johnny Rod's Wrestling School in Brooklyn, New York, in Gleason Gym, and went from there.
Man, I bet you like at the time you probably didn't think or didn't know that not doing the med route was like a big brain move. It's a big risk. It's a huge
Yeah,
risk, but we have to take the PCAT for pharmacy school, and then like we have friends and people we've worked with through our careers who've done the medical route, and like the MCAT's a beast. And then you do med school, you spend 4 years of your life just cramming nerd style, and then you're going to specialize. So then that's who knows 2 to 8, 9 more years of like just sucking dick until you finally get to the point where you can actually like practice on your own. There were residents we did rotations with where it was a specialized infectious disease, but they were on 8 years of residency. So that's 8 years past graduation of med school that they're still just getting dogged on all day. So like this, how much stress relief did you feel making that decision to put down the textbook and pick up the weights?
yeah. I mean, I was still young, so I felt I was young enough to make that kind of decision. If I would have had to make that decision at the age of 25, probably might have gone a little differently. But I was 21 when or I was 21 when I graduated college. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people were surprised, but at the same time, I had always been a wrestling fan. It was like known about me. Like I would travel while in college, I was traveling to like Orlando and Houston for WrestleMania. Like I was a big fan. So family members were surprised, but the people I was in college with weren't too surprised. And whenever you try to do something like that, you're going to have people telling you it's not a good idea or it's a one in a million shot. But I feel like I've always been a realistic person in terms of goals that I think I can accomplish. And I thought with my height, my passion for wrestling, I thought that it was something I could maybe, get to the top of, get signed and get to WWE. And I was right. So it was definitely a tough decision, but in my heart, I knew medicine wasn't for me. And wrestling, since I was a child, was always my passion. So I went with my passion.
Yeah, it seems like where you zigged, we zagged, and like in veterinary medicine.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Well, we
like
were on that older end of that spectrum though, Pat. So like
for
us making
sure.
that decision at our ages would have been like, no, at that time. 'Cause we were
Right.
we were in our like what, 28-ish.
So I was like closer to 30.
and
But
I thought it was real, like a somewhat realistic goal, because if I would, I've liked music my whole life. I wasn't about to just think I was going to become a rock star when I graduated college. This was something where I thought I had the physical tools, and I had been a fan and passionate my whole life. Where I thought this is something, this isn't as out of the realm of possible as some people that I know think it is. So
right.
I thought, yeah, if it was, yeah, like I said, there's a million things that I want to be a rock star, or I want to go to the NBA. So there's no way I could do any of those things. I was very realistic, I thought at the time.
Yeah, fun fact, you debuted in Dallas after Mania, right?
Yeah,
I was there.
2016. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
hell
I
yeah,
was at we flew out to the Jerry's World because that stadium was just huge, and that was the first
yeah,
Mania I'd ever been to. So we did Mania and Raw after. So yeah, like I remember when you debuted and you had a great run in NXT and all that stuff, and I think everybody's
yeah,
ready for you guys to come up. So that was
yeah. I
awesome.
think people were very excited to see us that night for sure. And it was getting
Yeah,
late in the show, so I think some people were kind of getting scared that we weren't going to debut. So I think it was also like a relief, like, oh, thank God.
right.
Yeah,
So, I mean, as far as wrestling goes now, I feel like the environment and the atmosphere is much different than it was, like, let's say in the 80s and even 90s, as far as like substance and partying and things like that. It was just a much faster lifestyle. How would you say that the lifestyle has changed from then to now? I mean, are there pressures backstage? I think anybody who's a fan of yours knows that you've had quite the journey as far as, sobriety and all that kind of stuff. I mean, what's your experience as far as that goes?
yeah. So I don't, the before I got into wrestling, I don't really know anything except through stories that I've heard. But I'm sure some people might say it's a little bit more boring nowadays. Um, but WWE, they had the wellness policy, so the only thing you could really do was drink. So who knows if without the wellness policy, what I might have gotten into. I was drinking a lot, and especially when I got on the road, it became very difficult for me to stay sober. But yeah, it's there's no pressure or anything. There's plenty of guys that don't drink, don't party, don't do anything. And looking back, everybody has regrets, and I wish that maybe I would have been more of a boring person when I got to the main roster, and just you know didn't get involved in drinking and all that. But I think one way or another, it was going to happen eventually, that I was going to kind of spiral. That's just what I believe. I believe eventually everything was going to catch up to me, and I was going to spiral eventually. But as far as pressure, I don't. Definitely no pressure from the locker room to party or anything. There's a lot of guys that don't. I'd say that's kind of considered cool. Also, some guys play video games, and I feel like maybe back in the day it wasn't cool to just keep to yourself and not party.
Right.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking that. I was like, I bet you the locker room is a very different atmosphere. Backtrack 20, 25 years ago, you probably would have probably had a little bit of trouble getting on some of those better gigs and better matches if you weren't part of that party crowd, part of that like in group.
Yeah, I think maybe it used to be considered uncool or lame to not party, but definitely nowadays I would say it's definitely not that. There's people that party, there's people that don't, and everybody seems pretty cool to me. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you just like I've watched a lot of documentaries. You see the dark side of the ring. I mean, there's so much stuff that's kind of like exposed the like I guess the net more negative aspects of wrestling where now I mean it does seem like it's cleaned up quite a bit probably because of the wellness policy, but I think people are just more educated on how like dangerous potentially alcohol can be for you, right? Like a carcinogen, it has potential to cause colon cancer and dementia, like long-term use. And I think that just health information is getting out there. Kind of even going back around. I mean, did any of your pre-med experience, studying for these things kind of impact your knowledge or your decision making as you kind of moved forward?
Not really. I mean, when there's a lot of things that I probably learned about the dangers of alcohol while in college, but while in college, you're like, oh, I'm going to party. This is silly. But like when I started having seizures from alcohol withdrawal, I didn't even know that that was a possibility before that. So when I had my first seizure, the doctors told me, well, it could be from alcohol withdrawal. And then I was like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that that was possible. Probably something I should have known. I'm pretty sure that's a well-known fact now. I feel like there's more people talk about it, and I feel like, especially because unfortunately there's been some deaths in pop culture from that. But also to respond to what you were saying, I feel like the younger generation now, drinking culture isn't really a thing. Like when I was in college, like drinking, going out partying, going to the bars was like was was what everybody did on the weekends. But I feel like the younger generation now, it's kind of cool to not drink. I feel like there's a lot of younger people that don't go out and party and don't drink, or if they do party, they, I don't know, smoke weed. But I feel like drinking alcohol is kind of, I feel like losing its popularity amongst the younger generation, and I think that's a really, really good thing.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
like
you're,
that you brought up the alcohol withdrawal kind of symptoms because a lot of people don't kind of think about it in that way. They don't understand obviously like the receptors involved and how all that kind of stuff works. And it does cause a lot of these side effects when you get that withdrawal aspect onto it. But then playing into as you were talking about the how the generations nowadays, I feel like it's kind of a double-edged sword. Because we saw what was it like late 2015 or so, like kids were fucking drinking Tide Pods and eating that shit. And
Yeah,
then, like what was it was popular when I was getting out of the Marine Corps was they were drinking with like lean, cough syrup and shit like that. So I feel like it might have been a trade-off, but as you mentioned, like recently, so as in the 2020 pluses, it really seems you don't really hear as much about it. You don't see even in like pictures, like Instagram and Twitter, like just images, you don't see that as much. Like stories can be whatever, but you don't see it. So hopefully it is making a good shift towards positive betterment.
yeah.
Because a lot of us have to hit that bottom before we figure out we got to start reversing the stuff, and maybe our children and grandchildren will be able to kind of think forwardly about it and make that choice off our mistakes, maybe.
Yeah, and the bottom
yeah.
is different for everybody. The bottom for somebody could be losing their job. The bottom for another person could be a near death experience. Everybody's bottom is different. It's really the point of where you really, really decide I can't go on like this anymore. I'm either going to die or I have to change. Yeah, like everybody that has a problem that wants to get better, they have to hit that bottom, and there's no telling when, where, or what's going to spark that. Which is difficult with especially with alcohol addiction because you never know what I can't. There were so many things that I went through where any reasonable person watching from the sidelines would be like, "This has to be the signal to him. You got to stop drinking. Like this is so apparent. Like stop drinking." The seizure that I had on that House of Hardcore show in Philadelphia. You would have think that that would have been a huge glaring stop sign. Like you have a problem. You need to get better, and it's just it really it poisons your mind, man. I don't know what to it fucks your brain up so bad that you become so delusional, and you think that you can, okay, this every next time's going to be different, next time's going to be different. It's so logical, makes no sense, but in the moment you feel like it's very logical. I don't know how to explain it, but it's alcohol addiction, man. It changes your brain chemistry to where you're really making poor decisions even when you aren't drunk. It fucks your brain up somehow where you're just making very unreasonable decisions where everyone around you is like, I don't, how is he not seeing this? You have to stop. You're going to die.
Yeah, I definitely remember towards the end of my partying days, and like Cam and I discussed it on our podcast where we were talking about this. First, the medical definition of binge drinking, I think, is like what, 3 drinks for a girl, 4 or 5 for a guy. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
when you look back on it, you're like, I remember Cam sat behind me in pharmacy school, and we like 5 for a guy, like that's a warm up.
That's a
Yeah.
You're
That's
talking about,
pre-game.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's a warm up. That's not even like a binge. Come on, like talk to me at 10, maybe. And but I would definitely agree. Like it spirals so much. And the first sip of alcohol, your dopamine starts flowing. I mean, there's a whole chemical cascade that happens that probably is what makes us dumb when we're in a heavy drinking mode. We're like, we
Yeah.
want this dopamine, we're chasing this animal, and it's so hard to stop once you're kind of in that mode. But, if you don't mind me asking, I mean, was there a point where was there a person who influenced you that was like, Big Bill, wake up, man. Like you have a whole career that you're pissing away, for lack of a better term? Or was there like a moment? I don't want to get too dark, but was there a moment that, that really shifted your perspective?
Yeah, I feel like so many people were trying to ram this into my head. And it got so bad with me that I wasn't even drinking to really feel any sort of euphoria anymore. I was drinking to avoid withdrawals to then avoid seizures. That was a point where it was like, it was really sad, for everybody around me, and miserable for me, just a miserable existence, drinking just to not have a seizure on a daily basis. I wasn't even enjoying it anymore. That should have been another clear sign. You have to go to detox and you have to go to rehab right now. But yeah, so many people around me were trying to get me, to AA or get me into rehab. And a lot of people in wrestling were trying. And I just thought I could do it my own way. I thought, no, I'm going to be able to drink like a normal person. This is what all alcoholics think. And it never happens. And then I went back to rehab for the final time in in early 2020, right before the pandemic, thank God. And I don't know how to explain it. They call it surrendering, but I would say gave up. I gave up fighting. I was like, I can't beat this. It was like admitting defeat. Like I thought my ego was like, I'm going to conquer this alcohol thing. Like I'm going to be able to drink when I want to drink, how I want to drink. I'm not going to let it control me. And I guess there was a moment in rehab that final time where I admitted defeat. I was like, this is alcohol's undefeated. No one beats it. Anyone that has a problem doesn't beat it. I can assure you. It's undefeated. You cannot beat it. So I gave up and was like, all right, I have to fix myself. Because the first few times in rehab, I wasn't very honest with myself and other people, and I wasn't very genuine. And I just went to appease other people. And that's a horrible reason to go to rehab because it's not going to work.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
I've
definitely want to get back to the rehab thing, and like what you went through with that and the coursework for that. But what you said earlier about the hangover, kind of you're just trying to stave it off the entire time. It reminded me of a saying from it's an animated TV show Archer, and he's like, "I'm just drinking just because the cumulative hangover would literally kill me." And I kind of resonate with that, and I feel like hopefully some of our listeners who maybe will struggle with some of this will kind of resonate that as well. Because at a certain point, as you encountered and you experienced, the results are real. Like the things do happen. It does cause issues with that. And at a certain point, you do become like you're not doing it for fun. You're not doing it for any kind of excitement or enjoyment. You're just like, fuck, like this hangover, this headache, that dehydration is just gonna murder my shit the next day. So I just need a little bit to kind of hang it off. That it's a pretty big deal like that. It's like
Yeah, and
it is
for
not.
any of the listeners that are having a problem with alcohol, I'll tell you this: if you're waking up the next day and your hands are shaking, you're in bad territory. Like you're going down the road that I was on, which leads to seizures and a whole slew of other problems. So, like for anyone listening, if you're waking up and your hangover is pretty much just a withdrawal and your hands are shaking, you probably need help. So I'll tell you, that's the first part of going down a really dark path. So warning signal to anybody listening that might have that issue.
Yeah, that's really insightful too, because I've definitely woken up with that feeling before, and like the first thing I did was reach for a beer, which is probably the
Yep.
wrong thing to do. But it's like in the moment you're staving that off, and I've like been sober for 2 years now, and I was like, when I saw you the other day walking, like I appreciate your work, man, because you've been pretty open about it, and like been pretty inspirational probably for a lot of people. And not to say anything bad, like I'm a huge wrestling fan, but wrestling fans aren't always like the most healthy group. And
No.
like I've sat like
No.
we were at the AEW show in Tampa in August, and we were sitting
Oh
like
yeah,
right there
yeah.
in the front. Yeah. You wrestled that. I think you wrestled that night.
Yeah,
And
tag team match.
yep. Once like Rampage started, so the Dynamite ended, Rampage started. Like some of those dudes they had some beers in them, and you just like hear all the stuff they're like yelling at the girl wrestlers, and it's just like this territory has like really sunk bad. I mean, and
Yeah.
it's like people do things they would never do, say things that they would never say under the influence, and like we're sitting there listening, we're like, damn, these guys are getting kind of vulgar with Anna Jay. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and you feel
dude.
bad for the girls in the ring too, because like it's
Yeah,
kind of
that's
spicy.
just that's just taking it too far, man. And yeah, so I'd say even say most wrestling fans are awesome. There's a very, very small niche of wrestling fans that are the most vocal and the most rowdy, and they really suck, dude. And
Yeah,
Oh
just
for
yeah.
sure.
you read Twitter on a Monday, well, every day now, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. It's just there's so much negativity out there. It's hard to find positivity. So it's sometimes it's hard to even look at social media because of wrestling fans because 10 positive interactions on Twitter could be completely reversed with one negative. And those negative people are out there, man. I don't know if they're real fake, if they're bots or what, man, but there's some nasty motherfuckers on Twitter, man.
Oh, for sure. I
Those
mean,
people,
everybody's really
they're
tough behind the screen. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like,
dude.
100%.
I
Yeah.
like, I met Big Bill in person briefly, and I'm like belly button height on that dude. Like, I'm not a negative person, number one, but number two, if I was, I definitely wouldn't say anything to your face. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, dude.
I don't
that's like
know,
a real
Pat. Right
easy way
there,
to
that's
get
like
clubbed.
cock punching right there. You're fucking set. Like teabag them nuts.
I
That's the
feel
only
like
option. That's all you got.
I feel like Bill would just like club me, like you know what I mean? If and I'm sure, but I think like it's just crazy. Even shifting over to social media for a second. I mean, how to like as a performer, you're at the top of the game. I mean, no, like you're in the big leagues, right, of wrestling. People are saying negative things, but it's like, bro, you can't even do this. Like, you don't even know how to hit the ropes. How are you going to tell me I suck at wrestling? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's guys, and a lot of them I think are really, to be honest, I think it's just a lot of them are insecure and miserable because they didn't pursue their passion. Clearly, they're passionate about wrestling, so they never had the balls to go to a wrestling school or never had the balls to nut up and pursue their dreams. So now they're miserable because they're 10 years behind. They didn't do it. So they look at the people that did and they're insanely jealous and insecure. And I really think that's what it is. They're just miserable people. It's like, well, maybe you should have fucking quit your day job and maybe pursued it. You might have made it. You seem to have the passion. But, I feel like those people didn't have the guts to do it. And now they're really, really miserable and jealous of the people that did. That's what I think.
Yeah, it's like the
So
mom's
something I'm
basement
wondering.
crowd.
Yeah, right. Something I'm wondering real quick. So on a more positive side of the social media, from what I understand, you heard our podcast with Eddie Kingston. So like, he feels like he's not a very like role model type person. He doesn't want to be the example for getting better and things like that. But like whether or not you want to or not, you guys are. You guys do hold a lot of clout with people. They see you doing better. They kind of aim to do better. Have you had any positive feedback coming through social media? Like, do you people tell you their stories, or do they like post inspiration for you?
Yeah, 100%. People will tweet at me, but I think a lot of the time I get Instagram messages, the direct messages. Um, People telling me that I've inspired them or helped them, or even people at shows, will come up to me, people at the hotel and fans in the airport will come up to me, and that's fucking awesome. I mean, that's like probably the best interaction I could have with a fan is when they tell me that. So it is amongst all the negativity when things like that happen, you feel like even if it's one person and I'm making a small difference, I'm making a difference. So those kind of things amongst the negativity can really inspire you to just keep going. So those are really the best interactions of the people that tell me that I've helped inspire them or helped them to try to get sober.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's like really
Yeah.
great to hear. And we'll kind of share that sentiment too. Like we'll get Instagram like DMs, or we'll get an email or something here and there. And I was like, dude, thanks for that episode. Or before Cam moved, like we did a lot of interaction in public. We would go set up a table. We're pretty active with some of the local wrestling indies around, just to kind
Love
of,
those guys.
yeah, see if we can kind of jostle up just some guys like trying to be a little bit healthier. It's our passion. We like wrestling. we like NASCAR, things like that. So we try to incorporate this into the things that we love as well. So it doesn't seem so much like work all the time, but
Yeah.
like, and I've noticed too, like when you go to an indie or something, if we're sitting behind the table or like we're ready to engage people, they might not always really be ready to talk. But if we go step away to go, watch a match or something, dudes come up and they grab stickers, they grab cards and things like
Pamphlets.
that. Yeah, and then they listen. So it's like they don't want to interact with us right away, but then they're like, "Oh, hey, I grabbed your card at Pride of Wrestling or something, and I listened to a couple episodes. Like, thanks. Like, I kind of learned so much that I didn't even know before." So I definitely share your sentiment on that. When people reach out and they tell you that they got a positive experience from something that you did, it means so much, and it just makes you want to keep pushing, because like that's really what it's all
Yeah.
about, right? Changing lives.
Yeah. I agree with that wholeheartedly. It's no matter how bad of a day you're having, bad week, bad month, when those things really could just brighten your mood and motivate you to just keep doing what you're doing and keep going.
Social media at the core is dogshit.com. Like, it unfortunately is a very like toxic fucking place. There's a lot of bullshit on there. So anytime you can find positive stuff, it's really good. But that like in-person interaction is always kind of like at the core. So I kind of wanted to get more into your like actual like in-person experiences. You said you went to recovery for things. Were there like any particular like programs, any particular aspects of those maybe that you liked, that you could want to share about or want to talk about, like something that kind of stood out?
Yeah, any sort of 12-step program at first might be hard to get involved right away, but I would recommend the 12-step program to anybody because that is what helped me out. At first I didn't think it was for me, but that was really what helped me get sober. They know what they're doing, man. I mean, they have millions and millions of people that have used the 12-step program to get healthy and get sober and stay sober. There doesn't seem to be a drug or anything else that pharmaceutical drug that helps with addiction, quite like going to a program like that. I feel like it definitely has the best results of anything. So for me, that's what I would recommend. That's what helped get me sober. And there's just a good sense of community, and there's a lot of people that you can rely on and people you could call at any moment. And in terms of there is also some people specifically. I mean, I don't think he would care me shouting his name out because he's very open. Is Shannon Moore? He was he was the guy that without him, I don't think I'd maybe even be here today. He was somebody who was a role model to me in my recovery, who was very wise, and he gave me tons of advice, and I still go to him for advice all the time. So yeah, man, I would say probably my biggest influence in my sobriety would be my interactions and my friendship with Shannon Moore. That guy, without him, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where I would be today. So someone like that I can call at any time, that will pick up the phone, will always have good advice, like always, like a 1,000 batting average, it seems. A guy like that, so find people you have things in common with, people you trust, and people who you like, and it's that sense of community. Finding people like that brings everybody together, and that's what makes it all work.
For sure. I appreciate that you brought up the sense of community. Like we've talked about it quite a bit, but there's this friendship epidemic that guys are going through where over the years, so many guys have said that they have reported just less and less close friends that they can talk to about, like less of the superficial conversation, cars, chicks, sports type stuff that,
Yeah.
guys are known for, but there isn't that, friend. So I'm really glad that you brought up, like you have a relationship like that and you have a community like that. Just because we all need that as men, and especially with the way things are now and guys having such a hard time opening up at times that, that's awesome.
Yeah, I
I
think
did.
I, I think I think sense of community is key to happiness, man. Even if it's like a group of guys that get together to play pool once a week, or maybe even guys that it could stem out of sports. A group chat that starts off as a group chat about baseball or something, and evolves into friendships. The community thing, there's something about community, everybody coming together for a common goal, for a common purpose that I think is fucking crucial to happiness and peace.
For sure. I mean, yeah, you look at the blue zones. I don't know if you're super familiar with those, but they're like these spots around the world where people live to 100, and they have all these characteristics where like they eat a certain, type of diet kind of thing. And but the main thing, like you go through all these things, and the common denominator they all have is that they're a sense of community, right? And
Yeah,
it's
man.
probably like the same reason that, the old man who, he lives to 100, but he's like not quite the healthiest guy. Like he's like, I smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day and I drink 4 Dr. Peppers, but he lived to 100. And everybody's like telling you, well, what about diet and exercise and all this stuff? But I bet you that guy had some grandkids that he loved, and he had just a
Yeah.
group of people that he had a purpose, and he had a way to wake up in the morning. He had something to do that drove him to wake up every day and to do his thing. And I think that's sometimes like that's more important to longevity than anything else that you can possibly do. I mean, if you lift weights and you're healthy and you eat super clean, but you have no friends and no community, I mean, like what's really the point of life, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. I mean, you're staying physically healthy, but there's something I truly believe, and believe me, before I got into recovery, I wouldn't talk about spirituality or anything like that. I thought it was hokum. But I'm telling you, man, that it's there's something very spiritual about people coming together for a common goal. And I think your spiritual health needs to be in order for everything else to be in order. So, and I'm I'm not bringing up religion. I'm just using an example. It seems like people that practice faith and go to church, they tend to be happier. And I think a good portion of it is that community and coming together for a common goal. And like you said, yeah, you could be the most physically fit guy, but if you're not helping other people, yeah, what are you really doing? It's about helping others, and in turn, you receive their help.
Sure.
Yeah,
I got one, like kind of one more idea. We talked a little bit about it off camera when we got into the room, but Cam and I have been talking about how guys are so much more willing to discuss their mental health. Like I said, we do a lot of stuff in the
yeah,
community, and I know that when we first started doing a lot of the men's work, nobody wanted to talk to us. They're like, dude, piss off. Like, I don't want to talk about my health, my mental health, anything. And we noticed in 2022 that there was a shift. So, like in our outreach and things that we did to promote the podcast and men's health, guys would actually stop and be like, wait, you're talking about men's mental health? That's crazy. And that was kind of the first time we both looked at each other and were like, what? Now you have, so it's been a couple years since then. Now you have a lot more guys. It's cooler to address your mental health, but what are your thoughts on guys not so much addressing their alcohol substance abuse with their mental health? I know you talked about they go hand in hand. I mean, any thoughts on
yeah.
that?
Yeah, I think first of all, I think I just think that certain, more of the older generation, they don't speak of mental health. It's just how they were raised, and you can't blame them. That's just kind of the environment they were around. But yeah, I think since COVID, it's become way more of an open conversation, especially for younger people. But for all men, the mental health has been more of an open discussion since 2020. A lot of people that are having mental health problems don't realize how linked that is to addiction and substance abuse and substance use. Those two go hand in hand. I don't think anybody has an addiction problem that doesn't have any mental health problems. I actually don't think it's possible. So mental health problems leads down a dark road if you don't address it. And I will say this, especially people, I'm no doctor, but from what I've seen in recovery and studying it, I feel like childhood trauma, unresolved childhood trauma is a big one that leads to addiction. I'm sure that there's been studies on that. It's probably been proven to some degree. Addressing mental health, talking about mental health is great. But yeah, like you said, the conversation about addiction also needs to be a very open discussion. People are dying, man. If people are dying. There's so many people out there who are struggling, and you see plenty of people even out on the streets. It's very, very sad, and I think more open dialogue, more open discussion will definitely lead to better progress.
for
Yeah,
sure.
it's something that it has been proven, is shown that things like you said, childhood trauma, stuff like that, but mental illness is obviously directly tied to it. And I think, in my opinion, both professionally and just personally, it's coming to the point where like we have to recognize that at some level we are all fucked up in some way. And most of us
Yeah.
will use substances because we like that separation it gives us from reality. We like to dissociate from our problems, our anxiety, our concern and fears. And we will go to substances that do that. So alcohol works on receptors that some drugs, pharmaceutical base, also interact on. And it causes that same kind of euphoria, that same kind of separation feeling. So that's why people will kind of get addicted both ways on those kind of things. And they don't realize that it is an underlying issue. And like you said, sometimes it is trauma from being from childhood.
Yeah.
And addressing that now, therapy isn't always, some people like to talk about. They don't like to go into and consider it. As Pat had mentioned before, we've tried earlier on to interact with individuals, and we do discuss therapy and counseling and options like that. And of course, as you had mentioned, the age gap, you kind of will notice the older folk don't want to hear about it, but younger people have kind of become more open to it. So it is a good thing. But addressing that trauma, that issues that we all have. Another kind of thing is like all of our childhoods are fucked up in some way. None of us are perfect. No human, our parents, their parents, etc. There's always something that we all kind of struggle with, and then we don't address it, and we get older and we're trying to deal with it and cope with it in our own ways to find that separation and lead to that substance abuse. And it's something we're coming into, conversations leading towards it. We're finding solutions, which is good. Both therapy, pharmaceutical, self awareness, and things like that leading into that. Do you have any experiences with therapy yourself? Like, do you use that currently? Was it part of your program, maybe?
Early on in my trying to get sober, I definitely used therapy, and it worked wonders. Not even it really helped me learn a lot about myself. I think if there's no magic pill, there's no magic spell that's put on you to get you better. But I think the road to getting better starts with understanding why you are who you are, what has happened to you over the course of your life that has led you to have the characteristics and the traits that you do. And I think, if anything, therapy helped me learn about myself going all the way back. So I think understanding who you are, why you're that way, is crucial to getting better. So if any, like especially in the beginning of my sobriety, that was very, very big. So things would, the way I react to certain things, I would be like, oh, why do I react this? Why am I always getting so anxious? Why do I worry about things that aren't totally unreasonable and will never happen? There's reasons for that. And I think therapy really taught me a lot about myself. So I would really recommend it.
Kind of shifting a little bit more, kind of as we wind it down a little bit. So, Big Bill, how have you noticed? Like, I've seen it, I'm a fan. How have you noticed that getting sober, you had to work your way all the way back up in wrestling? How has that impacted you? Like, how has that journey kind of put you where you are today?
Yeah, man. That I was definitely at the lowest end when I, left wrestling to get sober. Yeah, it's definitely an overwhelming hill to climb. It started with getting sober and then getting ready to come back to wrestling and then reaching out to people. I developed good relationships with people over the course of my career. I think I've done a lot of stupid things. I've made a lot of mistakes, but I feel like at my core, people know that I have a good heart and I'm a good person. So I developed good relationships when I was in WWE and when I was wrestling. So I reached out to Luke Gallows. He's somebody that I kept a relationship with. And he asked him if I could do one of his shows. And he said, yeah. And then I was like really worried. I was like, I don't know if people are going to even remember who I am. It's going to be so embarrassing. I walk out and there's no reaction. And he was like, let me assure you, man, people are going to remember you. 100%. The people in this gymnasium are going to remember you. And when I came out, it was a big reaction. And that was, the first step in me getting back into, the kind of building my way back up in wrestling. And then Impact was fucking awesome. That place is fantastic. Um, I loved my time at Impact. Everybody there, the people there, they're all fucking awesome. That place, I can't speak highly enough about Impact and what it did for me. It definitely gave me a lot of confidence back in myself. And I feel like a lot of my best work up to that point was in Impact up until that point. And then, yeah, I think, again, AEW, it's about building relationships with people that I knew. MJF was actually a big part of getting me into AEW. It didn't pan out, obviously, because there were some things that happened. John Moxley, Diamond Dallas Page, they talked to Tony for me. And I feel like if I didn't build those relationships and I wasn't the person I was, some of this stuff wouldn't have fucking happened. So then I had another opportunity in AEW, and luckily Tony gave me the opportunity. Yeah, I feel like I'm still on the way up. I feel like I'm still getting better and better and better, getting more and more confident. Yeah, and I'm never going to be satisfied. I feel like anybody that's going to make it to the top of their game is always going to be satisfied. Kobe Bryant won his 5th championship and then was still not fucking satisfied, So I've achieved a lot in AEW, World Tag Team Champion, and getting back onto television, which is a huge goal of mine. And I'm so happy that I did that and very proud of myself, which is a word I don't use very often, is proud. But yeah, man, I want to keep getting better and keep climbing the ladder there. That's my goal.
Dude, you wrestled
and I
Sting.
think, yeah, it's fucking great, huh?
Like,
yeah.
Wild, bro.
Yeah. And I think without hitting that low that I hit and having to fucking scratch and claw my way back out and all the way up, yeah, I don't think I would be in the position I'm in. I think that dark period and being so low and having to dig my ass out of that hole was crucial in my trajectory of where I'm at now. But yeah, I wrestled fucking Sting, dude. Fucking
yeah, this guy wrestled fucking Sting.
Caught his ass off a balcony, man. That guy jumped off a balcony. I caught his ass.
That's right, dude. Yeah. What's it like getting in there with Sting? Like, I know he's older. He's what, in his 60s? Yeah. Is he in his 60s there at the end?
Is he? I don't even know how old he is.
Well, like, what's it like? I mean, you got a Hall of Famer, you have a legend jumping off at you, and you like, is there a lot of pressure to catch him?
Fuck yeah, I mean? Dude. Yeah. Especially before, I mean, I think everybody watching, or I hope they know kind of what goes into wrestling. It's not all, there's some things that have to be talked about earlier. So when that was brought up, it was like, so Darby's going to jump off the balcony. And Sting was like, no, I'm going to jump off the balcony. We were like, all right, fuck it. Let's do it. So he's crazy, man. Sting's he's great, but he's crazy, man. He loves doing wild shit like that.
We were kind of just talking about that off camera beforehand. It really seems like we'll see how the current generation is, but the older generation is all about just staying in that crazy shit. Because up here in the Northeast, fucking Mick Foley is out here still going to Ohio Valley Wrestling. Just fucking, he's throwing down either tonight or it's like next week or something like that. And we were talking about how is this man who's been out here just having his ass beat all day, all the time, grinding still at his age, just like we're doing some more. And then we're brought up Ric Flair, fighting his last match in his fucking like 70s. Like it is insane the drive some of these guys have. Some that you still have. You're still going viral and all that kind of good stuff. Like it's a testament. It's a testament to yourself and your willpower.
Thank you. I gotta hold on. Did you say Mick Foley's working this weekend?
Foley is either tonight. It's a Thursday fucking night for some reason.
What do you mean he's wrestling?
I don't know if he's wrestling. He's going to be at the arena. I don't know if he's going to be wrestling or not. But
okay.
He's going to be at this place, and I was like,
I've heard that he's looking to wrestle his last match.
Yeah,
like I think I've heard he's looking to get back one more death match.
What?
Big Bill's like, I'm about to get a fucking flight. Let's do this shit. It's pissing me off because it's Thursday, and I'm like, we have work tomorrow. Like, I can't fucking because I think they wrestle in Lexington, so it's like an hour and a half, hour and 40-ish away from me, and I'm like, I can't fucking drive out there on a Thursday night. I'm probably go to work at fucking like 4 a.m. Like, fuck. But like that would be fucking insane to see.
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, look at the things he did in his career. He's fucking insane, dude. Like,
yeah, right.
just getting thrown off the Hell in a Cell. The fact that was agreed to by him, he is.
The fact that it happened, he did not die. Like, let's be honest, we all were like,
yeah, man.
We were all like, what, 7? And well, you were probably like 9, and that shit happened. And fucking, we're just like, he's dead. He's fucking dead. And then he gets up, and you're like, there's no fucking way.
That wasn't even the worst bump of the match because
No.
Yeah.
that's the table. The table has a little bit of give. It was the one where he landed through the top of the cage in the ring.
Yeah.
I don't know how that didn't kill him, man. Like, because he did not land with the spring. It hit it like concrete, man, and bounced. Oh man, that clip is like really disturbing.
Yeah.
It
When
is,
I
but
was
it's the
when I
best.
was in like eighth grade, I read his book because I was like a huge Mankind fan, right? And I'm reading his book and he's talking about how if actually he didn't hit the cage in the way he did, he would have like spun and landed on his head. And
Yeah,
so even though it's like so gruesome the way it happened, that he actually, and it looks bad, it could have been so much worse.
Oh yeah.
yeah,
And he's
yeah,
just a freak human. I mean, I am forever grateful for the entertainment Mick Foley has given us
yeah,
in our
dude.
lives.
And then 6 months later, he was getting hit fucking 19, 18 times, whatever it was, by The Rock with his hands handcuffed. This guy's
Uh-huh.
nuts, dude.
Yeah,
Nuts, bro. Yeah.
absolutely insane. But yeah, like again, Big Bill, like we were talking about, we're like, dude, we get to talk to somebody today that wrestled Sting, and
Fuck yeah, dude.
I'm excited for you. Like I can only imagine
Yeah,
how you
dude.
felt.
Yeah,
But
it was amazing.
like, how was that like just on the end of his run? You're part of Sting's retirement stretch, right? Like,
Yeah.
I know there's probably a lot of pressure, like we kind of talked about, but like just what does that feel like inside? Like just your journey, like you've gotten to wrestle Sting. I mean, how many people now can
Yeah.
even say that?
Yeah. No, it's absolutely incredible. And it's like if you would have told me this, 3 years ago when I was going to do Gala's show that, yeah, in 3 years or whatever it is, 3 years, you're going to be wrestling Sting in a tag team title match on AEW right before he retires. I was like, get the fuck out of here, dude. So it's awesome, dude. It's just like, especially it brings you back to being a kid, watching Sting on Nitro. And I was even a big fan of Sting when he was in TNA. So,
Yeah.
when wrestling wasn't cool, when I was in high school and college, when I stayed, a wrestling fan. Yeah, man, and just getting to wrestle him in his second to last ever match in a tag team title match was really cool experience, and another one where I was proud of myself, man. Like, holy shit, you've really come a long way. Because no matter what, you can't take that away from me. There's pictures, there's video, it happened, so that can't be taken away.
That's something
That's
I think
awesome.
we should really emphasize is like sliding off of Sting's cock right now is like you still like this is your rise. This is not like great wrestler, great career, amazing. But this is still like your story, your rise on this. And the fact how you brought up earlier, how you're still not satisfied, you're still gonna claw, you're still gonna go up for the top. Um, that's something that we definitely want everyone to kind of recognize that we all have that drive. Like it is present for us to do all kinds of stuff. Like the stuff I got to do in the military, the stuff Pat did with baseball, stuff you had to do with wrestling, to do in pre-med and wrestling. Let's be honest, like that's mental and then physical anguish there. We all have that drive. All of us, on this planet who, we fuck this shit up too much. We fuck it up. But we have the ability to really do great for ourselves. We just have to kind of apply, have some goals, and just knock that shit out the fucking park. And then you're catching motherfuckers off balconies before you know it.
Yeah. Yeah. Good way to put it. Yeah. It's
Oh, man.
once that switch is flipped and the motivation once the motivation's turned on, it's really hard to stop us, man. It just once the goal is set and it's a realistic goal and you start day one to put the work into it, it's you got to be relentless, and I think that's what a lot of us are, man, is relentless, dude. Just keep pursuing, and then when you achieve a goal, you got to set a new one. Because I think for me, especially with no new goals, with nothing left to achieve, I don't know what I would do with myself. So I have to keep setting new goals. Okay, you made it to Impact, then you made it to Ada. Like I need to keep setting new goals to keep striving for something.
For sure. I mean, you're in the tag team tournament right now. We talked to Eddie and he won the Continental Classics. We talked to Eddie right when the Classic started. We're talking to you, so hopefully you're winning the tag titles in this tournament.
Hopefully,
Definitely.
Let's get that MHU good luck charm going.
Right? Like you come talk to us, you win some belts.
yeah,
Um,
dude.
but it's so awesome to hear your story, and just like I can tell you're just a super grateful dude, and it's just been really great to talk to you about your journey. Just kind of before we close it out, is there
Really
any
proud of
moment
it.
like up
That
until
made
this
me
point that has made you who you are, that you are super proud of, and that you are just like, relishing in that fact that, hey man, I did this and I'm on my way back up to the top.
damn. I don't. Yeah. Wow.
It
That's a
can be
really good fucking
in or out of
question,
the
man.
ring, in or out of the ring, man.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be there.
man. I think something that has happened a few times that has really, really impacted me greatly. And when someone in wrestling who has seen me at the low tells me they're proud of me, so I'll give you an example. I don't even know if he fucking remembers it, dude. Um, but when I had the match with Wardlow on my first night in AEW before I was actually signed by them, Brian Danielson in the locker. Oh no, in the locker room. We caught up and we talked for a while. And then as he was leaving the building, he said, "I'm really proud of you, dude." And that meant a lot to me because he was the guy I feuded with last, right before I got fired from WWE and went down a very, very dark hole. And it had already began months prior. And he was seeing it first fucking hand almost every night, house shows, and he knew everything that was going on with me. So when he told me that night in Baltimore when I had the Wardlow match, that was a big moment for me. So I'd say Brian Danielson telling me he was proud of me. It wasn't just wrestling related, it was life related to him saying that. He knew everything prior and he was there firsthand. So that meant a lot to me. I'd say that was a really cool moment for me. That was I was proud of myself after that. Like, fuck yeah, man. Yeah, you've come a long way, bro. That
Man,
was
that's
big.
awesome. I'm happy to
Yeah.
hear that.
I don't even
And
know if he remembers telling me that, but I remember it specifically. It was in the hallway in Baltimore after the show.
man, that's awesome. Like, just he's, if you don't know if you're listening, you don't know who Brian Danielson is, he's kind of working his way up to being a legend himself. And, I'm sure to hear that. And like, when you work with guys, like, it's not just like you go out there for a match. I mean, especially in WWE, you got house shows. So like he's working with you and probably just watching the decline, and
Yeah.
to a degree, it's probably scary. You're like, dang, am I going to have a moment in the ring with this guy where I might be hurt? And that's awesome. And then the part two to that question was, any tips or advice? It doesn't have to be about sobriety or anything like that, just that you would give to men in general to kind of help them push forward if they're going through a rough time. If it seems dark and there's no return, what would you tell somebody if you had the chance to kind of change, an outlook?
First thing to do is talk to somebody, tell somebody about it. I know, like we were talking about earlier, there's this stigma to like keep it to yourself, and I gotta be strong and I gotta be an alpha and I gotta be stoic and not tell anybody my problems and never show weakness. That's some old school bullshit and it's fucking lame, dude. That's only gonna get people killed. So I know that used to be preached. That's only gonna fucking get people killed or die or go down a dark path. It's horrible advice. So I would say tell somebody that you trust. Tell somebody that might have gone through the same thing. That's the first thing to do is reach out and be honest, man. I would say the reason that it took me so long to get sober is because I wasn't honest with people. I constantly was lying to manipulate the situation. You're not you're not going to get better unless you're honest. So start talking about it and be honest, no matter how embarrassing it might be, because that's going to be crucial in you getting better. And the other thing is, man, it gets better, man. I'm telling you, it gets better and better and better. It's fucking possible. Look at me. We don't have to get into it. Look at how low I went. The things that were said about me, written about me, tweets that were put out about me, people recording me having seizures and mocking me, and fans in the ECW arena mocking me after that, which they fucking did. Look at how low it was for me, and look at where I'm at now. It's possible, dude. I'm telling you, it's very possible as long as you are honest with yourself, honest with others, and bust your ass.
Fuck
Man,
yeah.
that's great.
Yeah,
Fuck yeah,
yeah,
that's a great way to wind it down, man. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hey, Big Bill, it has been an absolute pleasure.
Been great.
Um,
Yeah,
Dude, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Obviously, you're always welcome. I appreciate your insight and just like the work that you've done to better yourself and to be an inspiration for others. So, thank you
yeah.
guys.
And
Thank you very much.
our listeners definitely will appreciate every word you said.
Cool, man. Thank you.